going to open this up on my YouTube channel as well. So we should be live. Let me just see. Yes, we are live. You guys say something so I can hear.
Hello.
Test.
Cool. Okay. So we are live. Thank you everyone for joining today's live. My name is Pokémon Sphere, collector, and I've been running my Pokemon business since January. I'm joined by Bonnie Tastic, who's a regular guest or co-host of this Pokemon Market Chill and Chat podcast. And today we also have a special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey guys. My name is Ern. I go by Ern Collects. I'm a big collector, buyer, seller, trader. Huge into Japanese for many, many years. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys today about literally whatever. Hopefully just Japanese, but wherever you guys want to go, I'm down to go.
Okay. We want to mix it up a bit, but we'll definitely reserve some time for Japanese as well. So maybe to start with, I think because we might have some crossover. We have a funny comment from Lamb Chops already. Because we have potentially some crossover, like I don't know what percentage between our audiences, but obviously it won't be all of it. So maybe it might be helpful for each of us to talk about how we got back into Pokemon cards, because I think everyone or every adult that's in this space is basically what I call a second phase collector. So you had your first phase when you were young, presumably, and then you had a pause at some point, and the length of that pause varies a lot between people. I mean, there are people who are just coming back to the hobby now, or who just came back in 2023 when 151 came out, came back in 2019 when Hidden Fates came out. So I think it's always interesting to talk about that as a starting point as to what got you back into the hobby. So I'll go through Max, then Ern, then me.
Okay. How far back? We going from the very beginning? You want to?
Just talk about like how you got back into it, basically.
Okay. All right. Probably it was. I think it was CP6. So 20th anniversary. I saw that set come out, and it looked just like base set. Obviously, I was too young to have base set when it first came out. So this was my opportunity to experience vintage Pokemon. And I bought a box and I opened it and I had such a good time. This was late 2016, I think, or early 2017. And I just got a bit more interested in it again. And I got given an Amazon gift card as well. And I don't use Amazon. This was 2017. And I went to use it. And in my basket, I had a box from years and years ago. It was a Bonds to the End of Time, which is Japanese Rising Rivals. So I didn't know what else to buy. So I went ahead and bought that. A few months later, I got another gift card. I thought I'd buy another Japanese box. And all the prices of those boxes had gone up. They'd doubled. And I just had like this light bulb moment. I was like, is this how it works? These things just go up as they get old. So I started to invest a bit more into it. And then here we are. It just snowballed, just carried on.
Why did you decide to buy Japanese, by the way? I'm just curious, like how did you determine like CP6 and those sets were what you wanted to buy when you first got in?
They were just cheaper. And also I had a lot of exposure to Japanese cards when I was younger. Somehow I just got my hands on them when I was in the playground at school. And I liked the look of them. And then I had the option of Evolutions or CP6, and CP6 was like £40, maybe $50 at the time. Evolutions was double that. So I went ahead and bought the Japanese box, and I don't regret it because I've had a great time buying Japanese.
Do you still have that?
I have a couple packs from that box.
Okay.
I opened 13 of the packs. I've got 2 left. I'll just keep them forever now. They're sentimental now. So
it's like a $4,000 box, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I guess I'll go next. Let's see. So when I was a kid, I'm a bit older than you guys, I think. My first exposure to Pokemon was Pokemon Green and Red on computer because my brother downloaded the ROM in Japanese. And this is right when Red and Blue came out. So you would play it on a ROM and emulator on computer, and he would download like a English patch. And the English patch wasn't written, in perfect English. It was messed up translations. But I remember playing I think in Japan it was only red and green at the time. I remember playing green on the computer after school. I was like, oh man, this game's pretty cool. And then the game comes out on Game Boy in the US, and we got blue. My fondest memory is, sitting in a room at night with like a flashlight, because the screens back then didn't have backlit panels. And I leveled the Blastoise to 100 by hand. And so, just to give you perspective on how to do that, it takes like two and a half. It took like 2.5 to 3 runs of the Elite Four just to get a level in like the higher 80s and 90s. So I sat there and we're just like grinding that game, and that's like my fondest memory. So I grew up playing the games, phased in and out like most people did, because it wasn't really cool to be a fan of really anything. Growing up, like kids in high school are not going to be talking about Pokemon. When I got into college, and then after college, I had more income, and I would buy random sets here and there. Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I remember buying a handful of packs. Plasma Storm, I bought a bunch of different booster boxes, and really it was just a rip. But I recall at the time too, I remember how weird the experience was, because in Plasma Storm, or that era, they started to have like really weird Pokemon, like Trubbish and like Garbodor. And I remember opening the cards and seeing these Pokemon. I'm like, this is not what I remember as a kid. So I phased out again, and then it wasn't until COVID, like a lot of other people, stuck at home, had a good amount of disposable income, that I decided like, hey, I really wanted to get back into collecting. I've always been a big collector in general of random things here and there, games, video games, that kind of thing. And that's when I started to hyper require and buy a lot of sealed product and singles and that kind of thing. My bridge into over to Japanese was when, after I bought boxes of Cosmic Eclipse, and I realized that the boxes were 250, 300, 350, 400. I started looking at Japanese, like, oh, I remember the vintage Japanese has like the pocket monsters on the back, and you flip it over and it's like a Japanese card. Yeah, I'm dissing Gen 5. Hey, there's an ice cream cone Pokemon like that. Someone has to explain this to me. It doesn't make any sense. So Cosmic Click comes out, and then I have a Discord group of friends, and we're talking about Japanese, and I just remember the same thing like you, Bonnie. Like, Japanese was so cheap, and I bought cases of Cosmic or Dream League at like $40 to $45 a box, when the Cosmic boxes were going for seven to 9 times that. And in my head, it just didn't really make sense. Like, why is that the case? Like, and it wasn't exactly clear. Like, is Japanese like Chinese? Like, people don't want it, or is something going on here where potentially in the future it could do well? So I bought it a lot. I bought a lot of a handful of different sets, cases and cases. And I did that throughout Sword and Shield. And over time, I just became a Japanese fan because it was cheaper, but also the print quality is on a whole nother level. You could open up an English booster box of any set in Sun and Moon, and the cards would come out, and they just look, they don't look as good, just texture wise, but the quality, like, you can get like 7/8 out of the box. Maybe you can get a 9, right? Getting a PSA 10 out of a box is like very, very hard. But you open up a box of Dream League, the only thing that you have to be worried about is the very small probability that the centering is off. No dents, no edge wear, like, print lines didn't really come into play until Sword and Shield. And so I kind of put two and two together, and was like, I really like this Japanese stuff. And that it paid off for me over time, just being a fan and wanting to buy that, because up until the big reprint a year or two ago, Japanese product, it skyrocketed and took off. So that's a bit of my origin. I'm a big proponent of selling now. I sell a lot more these days than I did when I originally got in. And part of that's because I think I've been lucky enough just to like roll profit, and I no longer like have to put money into the hobby. It's all profit that I've gained and realized. But as such, I've had to slow down a bit on hoarding Japanese, because it's just not where it used to be. So that's a bit about me.
Cool. Thanks a lot for that intro. I think for me, I got into Pokemon from Gen 1, so I actually played Red and Blue on the Game Boy as well, but this was when I was in Switzerland. So the first cards that I actually was exposed to in my life were actually French cards, French base set booster packs. I still remember, but my parents never got me that many packs. It was just probably like 3 to 5 packs maximum, and I had to share the pulls with my brother. So I actually still remember we opened the French base set pack, and we pulled a Poliwrath Hollow in it. But then my dad basically held the 11 cards, and I got to pick 6 of them, and he got to pick 5, and he got the Poliwrath. So obviously, I was very upset. But those are my initial memories into Pokemon. I think when Gold and Silver came out, I don't think the cards were being played around at school so much anymore, but people were still very much playing it on the Game Boy. I never managed to have that experience with Gold and Silver. So I phased out of Pokemon cards from the end of Gen 1, and I got back around 2012, which is the later parts of Gen 4 and the start of Gen 5, so actually pretty similar to Earn. And what got me back really, and this was when I was in China, was watching Primetime Pokemon. And I think that says a lot about what social media is doing for the hobby, whether good or bad. People need to remember that a big part of this hobby is also positively propped up, and the community has grown from the rise of social media. So it was just watching Primetime Pokemon open packs, and I was like, I want to do that too. Now, I was living in China, so I actually had exposure to both English and Japanese cards. But I was buying Japanese cards from the same seller that Max was buying his Japanese boxes from in 2019. This person called Poly100, which I don't know if Ern you know, but for the longest time they had very very cheap boxes, and one of them I have with me is this one. This is
Oh,
the
wow. Oh, it's
L3.
opened.
Yes, it is. It is opened. L3 Clash of the Summit. I bought this and I was like, it's cool, so I just opened it. I also bought 2 Plasma Gale. So in English, I think that's Plasma Storm.
Plasma Storm.
In Japanese, opened one and kept one. But yeah, I've basically kept most of the things that I had from when I was a kid, because I still have the pack wrappers as a reminder of what I've lost out on. But that was probably my fond memories of opening, and I did open a lot of English. So I came back from Gen 4, but I think I had the same reaction as you when Gen 5 came out, because I opened some of the tins and I just wasn't that into the Pokemon designs. So it phased out again until about 2016, and that's when I started coming back into it, and I started picking up some slabs. Like my first few slabs were like gold stars, PSA 9s, 10s for sub 3 figures, basically. So those were the good times, at least in terms of picking up stuff. So before we get into the rest of this video, I'm going to run a quick giveaway winner. So this is, if people have watched my last video, Slab Sentinel very kindly sponsored it. So they are a graded card protection company. So they make a lot of different products. This one is the slimline case that I actually use myself. This is the new pink color, which is why I'm showing it, but holds up to 30 slabs in here. So we have 2 winners to pick. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly. YouTube random comment picker. There we go. Thank you everyone for entering, and let's see if my comment, because I've obviously commented on this, if it gets picked, I will rerun it. So
it holds slabs. The thing holds slabs. I thought it was oh, that's great.
Yes. So congrats, Destino's Child and Udesi. You've both won a Slab Sentinel Slimline case. And yeah, okay, so that's the giveaway done. And maybe we can start chatting. So I don't know, easiest place to start, I think, is sum up the way you feel about the market at the moment.
Overwhelmed.
Want me to go?
Overwhelmed?
Yeah, a little bit. It's just it's hard to make decisions confidently, I think, with some of the new stuff, because you just don't know how much is going to get printed. I'm like, I know Destin Rivals is great, but I don't know when to buy or how much to buy. I find it more stressful now than before, personally. Yeah.
I think I feel that way with Japanese, because keep in mind, we had to deal with tariffs, and so there's a lot of like noise around the price. People project how they feel about the tariff onto what you should buy and what you should not buy, when like the rest of the world doesn't have to deal with tariffs like we do. And we're seeing price swings. I think Rocket was at down to like 70, low 70s a box USD for us. And then now I think the lowest I saw was like high 80s and 90. And it's, tariffs aside, I think it's hard sometimes to figure out like the general sentiment of sets when a lot of the content that's being produced, at least from what I see, is people who are the most sensitive to price swings, right? And so, I think there's not a lot of people who have an opinion on, is Glory of Team Rocket a good buy at this price, because they would never buy it anyway unless it was cheap. And so I think like if I don't track the prices very directly and deliberately out of Japan and just see where the market's going, it's hard for me to feel confident about buying a lot of Japanese sealed outside of like the Tohoku and the Hiroshima boxes. But the standard sets, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Is $70 a box for Terastro a good buy? It was in hindsight, but like at the time, should I keep waiting? Should I not? Like I can't tell these things, tariffs. Like it's harder to figure it out these days than it ever has been before.
Mhm. But it sounds like that's being driven by external factors, right? Which is your regulatory environment.
It's regulatory also, but I think a lot of the suppliers too are also sensitive to those changes. And so, I think trying to understand if it's a good buy just from the Japanese market sense, and not have to think through, is my middleman or is this reseller, are they projecting how good or bad this is based on how they run their business? Like that's hard to do, right? And I think now cutting straight to and cutting straight through and going straight to like sellers out of Japan. But then the requirement is like, you got to buy X amount of boxes. You got to buy 10 boxes, 20 boxes, whatever the amount is. And it's like, it's just a harder computation to figure out now than it has been in the past.
Okay. Can I ask you, when was the last time you bought something Japanese? I'm curious about that.
I bought 15 boxes of the Pokemon Center Tohoku box.
Which design is that? Is that the
The first
Gyarados?
one.
Latios?
The first one, yeah.
Okay.
The Gyarados one's like $300 a box, and I need to decide by the end of the weekend if I want to buy into them, but they're getting more expensive. Outside of that, I bought a couple of boxes of black and white to rip, but prior to that, it was Heatwave.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, Heatwave is good. So I think it is difficult to, me and Max talk about this a lot, but the way we view prices now of Japanese is very different to what it was like towards the end of Sword and Shield. So like for the longest time, Max in particular was buying Fusion Arts. So for people who don't know, it's the Japanese version of Fusion Strike, but without the Espeon, without the Gengar, for 4,000 yen. And even actually just thinking about the start of Scarlet and Violet, after English overtook Japanese again in a general sense, was it at the start of 2024 when Cyber Judge and Wild Force were coming out that they just wouldn't stop printing that? And at one point, those boxes were hitting like 3,500 yen, I think, which is 17 pounds, 25 bucks, I think. So when you look at Japanese box prices now, they're above retail, but they also feel like they're not as crazy as the time when Clayburst and 151 were coming out in Japanese. Because when Clayburst and 151 were coming out, that's when you started to seeing even Japanese people fighting in line to try and get those Clayburst boxes.
Yeah, Clayburst was so expensive when it came out. I remember that.
Yeah, and 151, I think people underestimated it when it came out, and it went to like 200 pounds in English, which is going to be like $250, $260. So when you measure it against that and you look at current Japanese sets, Glory of Team Rocket, Heatwave Arena, they're like 9,000 to 10,000 yen, which is, I'm just trying to do both conversions in my head. 45 to 50 pounds, so like 60 to 70 bucks, as you said. So they're good sets, and the price is nowhere near as crazy as what it used to be. But Heatwave right now is still double what the Japanese retail price is. Not that retail price is ever realistic, but
Yeah, I think if I can further explain what I was getting to earlier, I think if it felt like I had more time, engaging that in the past was a lot easier, but because of tariffs and because how fast they're moving, it feels like the time window to buy in at specific prices is just quickly moving on. And I think that's probably what I'm not used to, because I it's easy to figure out what's a good set. Like that's clear as day, right? Like not every single Japanese set that comes out is good, but you can figure out, like, do you buy Crimson over what's the other part of Crimson? Other part of Twilight, Mask of Change or whatever. Yeah, like you clearly would never buy that set because the cards are not good, right? So it's a lot easier to figure out what the good sets are. I think finding and agreeing with yourself on when how long you had to buy in, I think that's harder to feel confident about. Because ideally, I would obviously buy a lot of this before it goes up, but the timing is just it's shorter than it used to be. It used to take several months, if not, almost a year for you to figure out how much you wanted to buy. And now you have to make the call sooner. So it's hi, baby. My daughter's here. Hello.
Cool. Do you want to bring her in?
You want to say hi?
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels much more rushed now, and because I'm not like a core investor or core collector as much as I used to be, and I focus much more on sell through, growing the business, buying things that I know are going to be gradable or I can sell in a short time frame. I'm not afforded the luxury anymore of taking my time. I think that's just harder to wrap my head around.
Yeah, I actually think that I have more time, but it is hard to gauge when to do it, because when we're talking about these sets, Heatwave Arena and Glory of Team Rocket obviously is a big topic that we talk about in our groups. And like the price right now isn't too bad, but in my head, I've always got that lingering thought of how long we could wait before another reprint comes, because these sets are not old by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, they're less than 6 months old each. And looking at what the reprints in summer last year did for 151 prices kind of makes me feel like I've got more time to pick these up. What do you think, Max?
No, I agree with you. Especially, it's hard to say. I think. Sorry, my mind's gone blank. Sorry, Heatwave, Team Rocket. I think they're two of the best sets from Scarlet and Violet, like normal booster box sets. I definitely want to get more of those. But yeah, I think they're not going to go down to those summer 2024 levels unless a massive amount gets printed, and also people just give up with Japanese again. Like, I think last summer, a lot of people just stepped away and moved towards other things because people were, they saw prices go down to below 4,000 yen. You don't want to. A lot of people just get put off at that point. They think there's no hope with that stuff, so they leave. And I don't know if that's going to happen in the next 18 months, like in this window of these things being able to get reprinted, because it just looks like things are getting more and more hot. I'm not sure how it's going to go.
I mean, I think the funny thing about a lot of the English crowd is they don't believe that there will ever be a surplus of supply. And the funny thing about that, the ironic thing about that is Japanese collectors used to believe the same thing before the reprints that started where they reprinted Paradigm, Lost Abyss, Incandescent Arcana, Shiny Treasure, and then that going into that big print of Wild Force and Cyber Judge. Before then, like Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield boxes were booming. They were doing incredibly well. And then I think when Japan decided to just correct all the supply and they didn't care anymore, and they printed to global demand or whatever they decided to do, like I don't think any of us expected for them to do that. And since then, it's changed like the landscape like altogether. But before then, like when sets would come out, they wouldn't have multiple reprint waves. Like boxes would slowly go up over time and they wouldn't crash. Like that's also why I got into Japanese so much. It's like, oh, this seems like a really good secret that's really obvious. Like all the boxes keep going up. And so I would be remiss if I didn't think about like it's possible. It's always possible. They did it once. It drastically changed the market. We're in a hot time again where supply is. I don't know how supply is in Japanese compared to like English, but I don't think it's as crazy in terms of supply being bottlenecked. I think everyone's getting their fix. Market price is still high, but that may be just because we're priced in, and like I don't think reprints are going to kill those prices. But in the future, like if let's say the Charizard set that comes out, if there's not enough supply and it's like $150, $200 a box, like I'm not confident they'll keep it that way. They will probably make sure that they print that thing into the ground and then into the ground and into the ground. And then we're going to hear about reprints every single month from all the Japanese suppliers until it's like, some respectable price, 60, 70, $80 a box. If I had to guess, because they had the track record and they've done it before. There's no reason to believe that they wouldn't be okay doing it again.
That's why it's difficult to know whether to go in now or whether this market cycle is going to outlast the print window or not. Because if they do have the intention to go ahead with these reprints, as you say, they can go pretty hard on them based on experience. Monkey's just put in a comment about 151 Japanese, which is good because I kind of wanted to talk about it. That it seems cheap compared to the English one. I think it's a little bit difficult to compare because we're comparing a booster box versus booster bundles and specialty set products. But I've always been a big proponent for 151 Japanese because it has something that the English doesn't, which is Master Balls. And those are the most collectible Master Balls because you look at the Master Balls that have come out since then, in Japanese or in English, in Terrestrial Festival, even though they look nicer with the texture, like no one is actively collecting them. So I do think 151, and we were talking about whether 151 would get another reprint on the last two live streams, but whilst I was confident about 8 months ago, I think we're pretty much out of it now. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. But I do think that the Japanese market situation is, and this is my opinion based on what it used to be, is relatively healthy because if you do want something, you can get it at not a horrendous price. I mean, it is a markup on the Japanese MSRP, but you're always going to get that anyways because you're not in Japan buying at the source. And like to actually buy it at MSRP in Japan and get the quantity that you're looking for is really, really difficult from my experience because all the stores are limiting it not to boxes, but to like a few packs per person. Or if you do buy a box, and I don't know if they still do that, they'll rip open the seal. So it feels in a weird place to me because the prices are higher than MSRP. No one is really talking about Japanese, all at the same time, whilst English counterparts continue to move up. So yeah, it's interesting what's going to happen. Let's see what Michu said. Yeah.
I had to look up the 151 pop. So the Charizard.
Yeah, 22K, right?
You guys know how many there are
in
PSA
10? 22K. Is it
29,000 in the 10?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know how many Pikachu Master Balls there are? 10,000.
Okay.
So I think that the challenge with the 151 Japanese is like
Mhm.
the demand is probably not outpacing the current supply, and so a lot of this dialogue around like should you buy, is it a good buy? English, I think there's just so much demand compared to how much supply there is
Mhm.
that it seems like a better. I mean, that's where the market is headed. Like people want it. Japanese, like you have to really zoom out and think through: are people going to be buying the Master Balls and the 151 Zards at a rate that's going to continue to increase market price? And I don't know, like the Charizard's already at 450. I just checked. It was
Yeah,
at 200,
it's gone up.
250 for more than a year
Yeah,
plus. The
yeah,
Pikachu went down to like 300, 350 for about a year.
yeah.
So it's what is the box right now, like 175 bucks?
Slightly more, but yeah, around that price.
Yeah, I would say, even though I love Japanese, like English, that pack going up to like $15 a pack. I hate saying that. I hate making comments like this, but like that pack going up to probably $15 a pack is probably a stronger and better buy than Japanese. That's what I think, at least for now. Until we see more volume, or until that Charizard in the PSA 10 in Japanese goes up and the Master Balls go up in price, I think that English is going to be the better buy with more confident and consistent sell through. And that's probably why you would want to buy it, right? Is it's something that people want now that is going up, that has the likelihood to appreciate, versus Japanese. It's really, really good, but we might be priced in for a while. And are you okay with that? Some people might be, some people might not. I'm definitely not buying any more 151 at ever. I mean, I have a bunch, but I think it's just too expensive for my taste.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting? I've actually noticed that Japanese alt arts in general are following a similar trend to the English ones, but it's just that no one is talking about it. So the 151 SIRs or SARs in Japanese have actually shot up in the last week or so, which I think is really interesting. And one thing that's really interesting from my experience of vending in the UK, but also searching on eBay, is I think there is just so much focus on English at the moment that actually, if you try and search for the Japanese SAR equivalent in a PSA 10, it's actually like there aren't that many, even though the pop is so high. When you search on eBay UK for like the 151s art, because I did all of this research earlier this week because I was looking at them. There's actually not that many available, so that's a bit interesting to me. And the one thing that appeals to me as well, Spider One, the one thing that appeals to me about Japanese as well is you're coming in at a much lower position than buying the English alt arts. Like just as a vendor, it feels scary to me to pay like 2K on a Gengar VMAX English PSA 10. I mean, the Japanese one is a lot as well, but it feels nicer, more comfortable to me to buy the Japanese ones. And maybe they go up a little bit lower, but I do feel like it's something that people are overlooking because when you go to shows in the UK, you can't actually find people stocking these, which might have a reversal effect a little bit. Sam Witt saying Night Wanderer to the joke. Please don't ban me. Night Wanderer, for people who don't know, is the Japanese equivalent of Shrouded Fable. So
Ban him right now.
it was such a bad set that I didn't even open a box, which says a lot because at that point I was opening every Japanese set at least one box to like experience it. But that run, the generational run of 2024 mid year and mid sets from like Mask of Change, Night Wanderer, and Stellar Miracle will never be forgotten because that's basically when I stopped ripping packs. Let's see
The
what.
best two cards are Persian and Houndoom.
I think on the English side that there's a bowl, a golden bowl. That's the best card in the set. I know it's like playable, but
Playable, the Earthen Vessel. Yeah.
but like, that can't be the main chase. Like
Because it's playable, right?
Yeah, But you'd think you'd have like just a nice looking card or a popular Pokemon as the number one. It's a bad set.
Guys, I'm loving this chat. I'm gonna get real comfy. I'm gonna take this call from the bed. So just so you guys know.
Sure. You got a call to take?
No, this call. The stream.
Okay.
I'm gonna lay in the bed.
Okay. Yeah. Get comfortable.
Gotta
Then.
get comfy. I was using a standing desk, but I can't stand on that thing for too long.
That's cool. Kane Smith, hopefully I've said your name right. Thoughts on Battle Partners? I think it's really undervalued. Reminds me of Dream League. It does remind me of Dream League. There's the obvious link there between Lily, and obviously the main chase card is the Lily's Clefairy. I think the prices are around 7,500 yen at the moment, which is probably like 45 to 50 bucks. So it does feel cheap, but it goes back to the conversation we were having at the start, which is you can buy it now, but I feel like I have more time to pick it up, basically. But usually what happens is once it starts going up, you're like, why didn't you pick it up earlier? But if I just assess the set as a whole, I think it's a really cool set. It obviously innovated by bringing back the trainer's Pokemon. You have the Lily's Clefairy, you have the End Zoroark, which is probably my favorite. So I do think it's a good set. It's probably the weakest of the three. So Battle Partners, Heatwave, and Glory of Team Rocket. But it has a beautiful feel to it. It kind of reminds me a bit of Incandescent Arcana as well. Whether or not that translates into something you should invest to, I don't know. But if you like it, I would say yes. What do you think, Max? Battle Partners. Is it something you're looking at?
I like it. Yeah, I would like to get more of it. My issue is the last few times I've gone to buy it, I do think to myself, I could pay, a tiny bit, get Heatwave instead, or pay a tiny bit more and get Rocket instead. And then I end up going and doing that, going and trying to get more of the one I think is the strongest. But I would like to have more battle partners. And it's not even an extortionate price at the moment, really. It's kind of fair. But yeah, that's one. I guess that's one I'm waiting. If there's another print or something like that, that's when I'm going to go in and try and get like a case or 2 cases, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Question.
I think that's the kind of set that like. Sorry, I was just going to chime in. I was going to say that I think there's like 3 groups of Japanese sets. One is these sets suck, just like outright. You shouldn't buy them unless you really like them. They're cheap for a reason. That's my recommendation. And Matt Banyard asked a good question about Sword and Shield, and I promise I'll make sense of this in a second. They're cheap for a reason, and if the sets aren't good, it generally means stay away from them from now and in the future. That's not going to change. Time will not change that them becoming good. And then there's the good/great sets. I think Battle Partners is a good set, but I think the mental math to do is, well, if you can buy Battle Partners, I think it's like 70s right now. At 70s, but you can get Rocket at like 85. Is that $15? Like, what is that difference in the dollar amount worth it? Because I think over time, though, what I've learned, I kick myself not just paying the extra to get the better set. And the better sets, if they're really good, that time, the window to buy and the price they're at, it quickly goes away, right? Whereas the sets that are good, sorry, those are the great sets. The sets that are good, like they'll always stay good, and like they're not going to double and triple in price compared to the great sets of that era. And so I think those are the ones you can probably, no matter how you feel about it, it's still in that camp of like, it's not 151, it's not Rocket, it's not Heatwave, so you could probably afford the time to wait a little bit longer. But I think it's important though to really lay out like, what do you think is great, what do you think is good, and what do you think is not good, and prioritize the ones that are great first until you have enough or you have your fix. Because those are the ones that are going to take off, and it's going to be like, oh crap, like Terrastle's now, I don't even know what it is, like 120 or whatever it is, 110. It's like, why did I even think about buying the other sets when that one was clearly one of the better ones of the era? You know what I mean? So going to Sword and Shield, by the way, and the lesson I had learned early on being a Japanese collector, there are a lot of crappy Sword and Shield sets in English, but even more so in Japanese. And the market price these days, it's actually kind of hard to tell, because if you look at market price solely, you know, like what's that one set? VMAX Rising. Is that the one? Yeah, the one with the Rillaboom on the front.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
a good set. But the boxes have been more than 200, 250 for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And the market price is more indicative of there's just a very low supply. It's not really telling, though, of what is the sell through, what is the demand. And so I think sometimes you can get lost in, well, this is the market price, like this is a good set, right? But in Japanese sets, like some of the older Sword and Shield stuff and Sun and Moon has very little supply that's really ever been on the market. Like early Sword and Shield boxes in Japanese, when I was getting into, they weren't as easy to get even for me back then. And
Mhm.
so I think it really comes down into, you know, the two things. Do you like the set? Because that should supersede anything else. Like if you like the set, just go buy the set, right? But other than that, or in addition to that, what is the set construction? Are there popular Pokemon? Are there good cards? And one rule of thumb that I've kind of taught myself over time is something that's not popular today has a very low to impossible chance of being popular in the future. And so this is why I'm not going to buy like what is it? What's the set with Iron Leaves in it? Was it Wild Force?
Cyber
Cyber
Judge.
Judge?
Cyber
I'm not
Judge.
going to buy that set. It's not popular. It's not popular today. I don't see there being a movie coming out for the 35th anniversary where like Iron Leaves comes back for its revenge and like fights Mewtwo, and then everyone's like an Iron Leaves fan. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to go up from here. It's probably going to go to the side and then maybe downward over time. So you can kind of like apply that line of thinking, and like at a global level, like the sets are probably what you see now is probably where you're going to get in the future. They might appreciate in price, but like the demand's not going to pick up as much as it is for a popular set that has, you know, Pokemon that people really want.
I actually think well, I actually think Cyber Judge and Wild Force are good sets, but maybe it's easier if we translate it to temporal forces for people. But the main card in Cyber Judge is the Iron Crown SAR, which the artwork wise is an amazing card, but there is a question about the popularity of the Pokemon itself. Because if you look at because these are DLC Pokemon, right? And if you look at the DLC equivalents in Sword and Shield, which is the Calyrex and the Urshifu, those seem to be disregarded entirely in English. So I'm pretty sure you can get a Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX, which is the one drawn by Mitsuhiro Arita, for like $120 in American, in dollars. So it does kind of go to that point as to whether those Paradox Pokemon are ever going to be popular or not, if they're not now. And we have a data point, which is how the English market is treating the Sword and Shield DLC Pokemon. Going back to Sword and Shield, though, I don't know if Max, you want to say anything. If you look at the prices of even the good sets, I think there's a big disparity that's growing at the moment between Japanese boxes and English boxes. So we go back to Lost Abyss, which is the Japanese version of Lost Origin, just without the trainer gallery. You can the price of that box hasn't moved since the reprint. So the reprint brought it down, and then it went back up to what it was before the reprint, which I think is like £130. I don't know what that is in USD, like 170, 180 USD. And then you look at Lost Origin, which is, I don't know what it is in the States, but in the UK, it's like 600, £700. So like 850 USD. And then you just compare the values of the top chase card, which I'm not saying is like the best way to compare, but the Giratina in an English 10 is what? Close to 1.8K USD, and the Japanese one is about half of it. But the box price of the Japanese is like 5 times lower. So that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't mean that people are going to pick it up. And as you said, the market price is not indicative of the sell-through rate, although the sell-through rate is obviously going to be higher on Lost Abyss than VMAX Rising. But I do find that interesting. One thing that people don't mention enough as well, I think due to a lack of knowledge, is to me there is a higher barrier of entry to buying Japanese just based on the risk of the boxes being resealed. Now, I've seen this sort of creep into the English sphere as well, because in the UK we've had some resealed Evolving Skies boxes floating around and Cosmic Eclipse, and they look extremely realistic. But there was a period where people were opening V-Star Universe boxes and finding juice cartons in them, and that actually still happened recently at a card show. So I do think that it requires a slightly higher level of knowledge and expertise to buy it, or at least not buy it blindly, because I know some people will just ignore it and buy it anyways. What do you think about Japanese Sword and Shield, Max?
So I will get onto that. I'm gonna quickly bring up the Paradox Pokemon again, because I would liken them more to regional Pokemon. So like a Alolan whatever or Galarian whatever. I would put them more like that. And I would say that the equivalent of Urshifu and Calyrex would be more like Ogerpon and the two monkeys and the Dark and Pekaron, whatever. And I feel like the Paradox Pokemon, I hate their names. I think putting iron in front of just another word is really lazy. But I think that the species might grow on people over time. I think the sentiment might change, because I've always thought that having the Unova trio in Cyber Judge is kind of like having the Galarian birds in Matchless Fighters. And I like Cyber Judge and Wild Force quite a lot. I don't really agree with their names, the Pokemon names, but I think that over time people will like them a bit more. And then back to Sword and Shield quickly. Yes, and you're correct. There's some bad sets. I have the worst one here. This is not up for debate. It is terrible. There's nothing in.
Is that the Rainbow Centiskorch set?
Yeah. They're irredeemable. I think there's a Gardevoir. I mean, that's all you can chase. So yeah, there are some bad sets. I got this not even much higher than retail about 2 weeks ago, and which 5 years on, which says a lot. Like, how is this box still nearly retail 5 years later? It's unheard of. But yeah, I think this sword is really bad as well, I gotta say.
I was gonna say, aside from my commentary about Iron Leaves and those Pokemon in particular, it's not one of those like focus on what I said. It's more so like what I'm saying, like generally. Like we can argue and debate like, are these going to be popular in the future or not? But I think like the main thing I hope people can understand is like the approach is what you should take, not like, like we can there's a pretty good probability I am wrong about Cyber Judge and Wild Force. I just don't like them, so I don't see that happening. But it doesn't mean that someone else can't apply the same lens. Say like, actually, I believe in those Pokemon. These sets are good. But I think like the challenge with a lot of people when they look at Japanese sets is they don't even have an approach. It's just more so like, oh, this is cheap, and like, yeah, it's cheap. Might as well buy it, and it's gonna go up. Like that approach, especially now with a lot of the junk sets, is not going to work. And like that set in particular, even though, what's the price on that, Bonnie? Like 150 USD now
on what, this box?
Yeah,
or I got this for 50, so $60. But yeah, it could be a lot more. Yeah, literally 2 weeks
ago. So it's no one,
and it's like 6 years
that
old.
thing has not appreciated at all. No one wants it.
No one wants it, so except for me.
An interesting question from Sam. Experience when coming to sell Japanese booster boxes once they've risen lots in value, which I think is a really valid question. I have not personally sold. Actually, I sold Black and White Dragon Blast to Rob. I don't know if Rob's still here, for one of his box breaks, and that was probably the highest value box I sold. But I can tell you about my experience when I'm buying these things, which is that I'm asking the seller where they bought it from. I'm inspecting them closely because of what I was talking about. But Japanese seals don't have any pattern or imprint on them. So unless you can feel it in hand, I feel like I've gotten good at that now, where like if the texture of the seal feels off, I can sort of recognize it. But just from a picture, it is still scary to buy. So I imagine from the buyer's side, there might be more resistance to buying these items than buying English booster boxes. And the other thing is just the buyer pool, I think, is a lot lower. So if you think about, I'm trying to think of a good example. I would imagine that the buyer pool for Blue Sky Stream is a lot lower than the buyer pool for an equivalent English Sword and Shield box, which would be like Brilliant Stars. They're both about $500 in value. If you look at the sell-through rate on Brilliant Stars, I'd assume there's like a few going a day. Whereas for Blue Sky Stream, I think it pops up once every now and again, but not all the time. Other than that big clear out that Max you spotted on Toreka Camp, right?
Yeah, they had like 52 boxes about a week ago, and I think they've got left. So and they were selling for £600, so that's like $700. Unless they did a private deal about someone paid way over market for a lot of Blue Sky Stream the other day. 49 boxes, I think, sold.
Wow.
So
yeah, the sell through is really tough. Like you have to have the right avenues, I would say, to sell more expensive Japanese stuff. Like I can rely on eBay now more than before. But I wanted to tell a quick story on did you guys see I bought that box of Double Crisis?
When did you buy
Have you guys
that?
seen that? So funny thing is I was at a show with Rob.
Oh, yes, I
and
remember you opened the pack, didn't you?
no. I'm crazy. I'm not that crazy yet.
Okay.
I was with Rob at a local show here, like 3 months ago. This vendor had a first edition. I don't have it here at this house, but first edition Double Crisis Japanese booster box. And I walked by it. I was like, Rob, dude, look at this. He's like, oh, this is great. You should buy it. So I got cold feet. It was like $2,300. In my head, I'm just thinking. I could not stop thinking about it for like 2 hours. You never see this thing, and I guarantee you, like 5 people know what this thing is here. And I have to figure out if I need to get this. So I go back around talking to Rob Moore, and he's like, "Oh, you didn't know? Both the full arts come in the box." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, in that box you get both the Kyogre and the Groudon." Did you guys know this? So anyway, he tells me this. I'm like, "Okay, I definitely have to buy this." I go back around, talk to the vendor, one of the local guys. He's like, "Yeah, no one's asked about this box." And if you understand Japanese, if Japanese had the same appeal as English, that box would have been purchased within the hour that it was laid out. If people understood the scope of Japanese and the rarity and how hard that stuff is to find. But like I illustrate that part of it's because like I got a really good deal on something that's rare, but also to illustrate that like the more expensive you go, the buyer pool obviously goes down, but people also don't even know like is this Japanese box outside of like, I mean, I guess CP6 is probably the most recognizable, but most other boxes above $1,000 alone, people don't even know what they are. Like, why would I spend that much money on something that I'm not familiar with? And so, you get really, as you get more into more expensive product, the buyer pool, it doesn't just shrink, it drops off a cliff. Like you have to really know who to go to that, like Rob who does streams or other people who sell to customers, because you can't just like have this thing go to a show and expect to sell it to someone there. Like even if vendors do know what it is, many of them won't touch it because it's going to take them too long to sell it, or maybe they're not liquid enough, or maybe for whatever reason. So yeah, the demand definitely tapers off, and you got to be careful if you're going to be hoarding this stuff or collecting or investing or whatever. Like sell through is a big challenge for Japanese product.
Sounds like a great opportunity as well if you've got more knowledge than the people selling the box or just other people who don't know what's in it. I mean, one thing that most people probably don't know is that in these Gen 4 legend boxes, unlike in English, when you pull a legend card from a pack, you actually pull both halves. And I know this from opening it myself. So
Wait,
if
what?
you yeah, so when I opened this, I pulled the Dialga Palkia set in the same pack, and I also pulled the Rayquaza Deoxys in the same pack. Same with Hargold. I pulled the Ho-Oh Legend same pack, and people just don't know that.
The whole of Hot Gold Soul Silver Japanese, every single set. If you get a legend piece, you have the other piece behind it. Yeah.
Dude, I did not know that.
There you go.
Oh, this is amazing. I never knew that. I see, you learn something new every day. That is amazing.
Makes sense to me, and it's a great feeling. But
Yeah, it makes sense.
on the other side, it makes sense as well. I think this is a good point from Dark Ibex, because I've been thinking about this, which is we live in a global market, and sometimes you might want to check for price differences in different countries. Because what I've noticed is that the Blue Sky Stream buyback price in Japan is higher than what I can sell it for in the UK now. So if you look at the price difference between the two of the three sets that make up Evolving Skies in Japanese, EV Heroes and Blue Sky Stream, in the Western markets, or at least in the UK, they're pretty evenly matched. But if you look at the prices that they go for in Japan, Blue Sky Stream seems to have pulled ahead of EV Heroes because of its rarity. So if you have the knowledge and are able to actually bring your product to Japan to sell it, which I've not done myself, but I know some people do, that might be a play. Now, whether you can scale that or not is a different question. But if you've got something and you happen to be going to Japan on a trip, I think is a great idea.
Where do you guys check? Like, what stores would you check that do that, and where would you go to check that?
For stores buying product,
Booster box buyback specifically.
I do not have the knowledge, but I do know that stores buy booster boxes. Because have you been to Japan, Ern?
I've been like 5 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a point to make, but I forgot, which was based on the answer.
That's
But
okay. I was just curious.
the sealed supply in Japan, at least from my own experience, is much lower once you start moving 1 or 2 generations down. So like it's actually much easier to find Japanese Sword and Shield for a good price outside of Japan than in Japan, in my experience. That might be because I don't use Sneaker Dunk, but I think if you walked around to a few stores with some rare product, they would take a look at it. Now, they might require you to speak Japanese or have a Japanese friend. I don't know if there are like nationality restrictions, but I do know that one of my friends does that, not just for booster boxes, but for cards as well. Thoughts on the prices of modern alt arts, particularly English? Do you feel the prices are inflated as they're so new? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer from my perspective. All I would say is, based on the principles that of how to assess the value of something, the prices on these, the Gengar VMAX, the Moonbryon, which are like, I don't know, 2 to 3 times greater in population in English, but the demand for it is probably more than 2 to 3 times more than Japanese. Prices are very, very high. But what I'm learning from this actually is I'm actually sort of gaining confidence in alt arts in general, which is a weird thing to say. But when Sword and Shield was coming out, the population difference between Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon and XY, or between Sword and Shield and XY and before, is so great that everyone basically thought that there's no way these cards can be worth money in the long term. And we did see the prices dip and go up and dip, and now they've gone up again. But the fact that these Sword and Shield alt arts, which are now like 3 to 4 years old, are still this popular in people's sort of want list, I think is sort of giving me confidence, even for Scarlet and Violet, whether it's in English or Japanese, long term. The one thing that I think you have to grapple with, though, is the volatility of these things. So in a hot market, there's enough demand to outstrip the supply, but I don't know what's going to happen when the market crashes for these things. What do you guys think?
I'm not equipped to speak on English arts, really. I don't follow the prices. So no comment.
I do not touch English modern alts anymore, primarily because I sold them all. And if I did touch them, I'd be grading them. I think anything that is high pop and increasing in market price, it defies a lot of logic that we used to think around high pop things shouldn't be expensive. But all it means is like there's more demand than there's sufficient demand to meet the supply that's available. And so I don't think inflated is probably the right word. Chinese stuff, like the simplified Chinese Pikachu, the fifth anniversary or traditional Chinese fifth anniversary Pikachu, I thought that was inflated because it grew very quickly, and because there was not that much supply in the market, I felt like the price was either not real or being manipulated, and it did retrace 20-30% from like 2,300 back down to like mid 1,500, I think. That kind of stuff, I would say, saying it's inflated makes sense. But for English, I think overvalued is probably a way of is probably the right term, and you can believe that or not believe that. But I don't think I think they're appropriately valued because more people come in the market, the booster boxes, the prices are going up, and there's just more supply than demand. And I'll be honest, I still fight this general idea to this day that high pop things shouldn't be expensive. But you kind of just have to like believe in the numbers. Like people are paying this, and if there's not enough supply, market price is going to keep going up, and you know that's just kind of how the math works. I will say though, the market's incredibly hot, and so if your goal is you want to buy in when you feel like they're appropriately priced, it doesn't really hurt to wait. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say they're inflated at all. I think they're adequate and where they should probably be.
Before I go on to my next topic, is there anything you wanted to talk about, Ern?
Yeah,
I'll open.
I would love for the both of you. I would love to hear a story time on when your golden age of Japanese collecting or sealed. When was that, and what did you buy? How much were things? Do you still have some of that through today? Like, what was the peak time for Japanese collecting and then, you know, accidental investing?
I'll go first because I think Max is going to take longer than me. To be honest, I opened a little bit of Gen 4 and Gen 5 when I was like a teenager, but I really started buying Japanese back in Sun and Moon. Tag team sets I actually went to an English pre-release for Forbidden Light, and at the same time was buying Japanese tag team sets from Tag Bolt onwards. But I do have to say that the golden age for me is Sword and Shield, and I don't think I've sold maybe one or two EV Heroes boxes. I still have everything else. That was also reflected the golden age for me in the fact that I was selling my English boxes and desperately holding on to my Japanese at that time, which led to me making some decisions that maybe feel so stupid now because I sold an Evolving Skies box for $180. So not even when I was high. $180 I sold an Evolving Skies box for in 2022. But a lot of what I associate with the golden age is Sword and Shield just because of that run of sets from the Japanese version of Battle Styles into Silverlands, Jet Black Poltergeist, Alt Arts being brought back from the end of Sun and Moon into Sword and Shield, but them innovating on that by doing VMAX alt arts, which I think are still my favorite alt arts of all time, based on the look and the texture and the way that they look in terms of the gimmick, because the VMAX gimmick is just a bigger version of the Pokemon, which I think is a lot less controversial than putting a crystal hat on it, so to speak. That was really the peak time for me. And I think it was the peak time for Japanese as well in the global community, because it was from Shiny Star V onwards that people were starting to get into Japanese because they were like, oh, we can get these sets a few months or a month or two before, and they're nicer. So from the end of Shiny Star V onwards, which I think comes on to Battle Styles Chilling Reign, or the Japanese version, and then Eevee Heroes, Blue Sky Stream, that run until the 25th anniversary is the best time for me. And that's when I was buying the most. I'm still buying a lot. But a lot of what I associate Golden Age with as well is how other people around me feel. Like, I love it when people are all hyped up about something. I know sometimes it boils over into frustration, but having everyone excited about the same thing excites me, if that makes sense. And I enjoy that. And I think for Japanese, that's when it was happening.
I feel like we might be heading towards the moment with these mega sets. Personally, I think they look great. Really looking forward to those. Like, that could be almost as good as that middle of Sword and Shield. I don't know. I'm quite hopeful. I like what I've seen so far for the mega sets. Right. Well, my golden age, I suppose, is the end of 2019, start of 2020. At this time, you could pick up Gen 4 boxes, Japanese ones, for anywhere between like £150 to £200, so like $250 or lower. We're talking about Japanese Stormfront, Japanese Legends Awakened, like really cool sets. And they were never common. Even back then, there would only be like one on the internet, but it would be a reasonable price. My price was like, as long as I'm paying £10 or less per pack, I want it. And there really wasn't much supply out there to buy for Generation 4. But I thought, I've seen Generation 1, 2, and 3 get really expensive and now out of reach for me. If I don't buy this Generation 4 stuff now, it's inevitable that it's going to increase, and probably increase faster than Black and White and X and Y. So that was my priority, was to get the oldest ones first. And then I moved on to Black and White. I wasn't a fan of Black and White when I was younger, but I love it now. I think it's a really cool generation. They try loads of new things. But those boxes, you could get them for about $100, a lot of them in early 2020. And I feel sorry for everyone else. I kind of took all the supply. I bought a lot of those, and I still have most of them today. I'm just having a look at my spreadsheets. Thunder Knuckle and Spiral Force you could get for cheaper than all the other Black and White sets. Even back then, I think Dragon Blast, Dragon Blade, Plasma Gale, they were expensive. They were like the top ones. And even today, I think they are kind of front runners for Black and White. But you got Shiny Collection. That was I could just never find that over the whole 5-6 years. That's just been such a rare box. That one is really expensive. But this was great for me because I was buying this stuff. I was trying to convince my family it's a good idea. They were like, why are you spending all this money on children's cards? What are you doing? And I'm glad I didn't listen to them, because it's worked out really well. But it was a good like pat on the back, like a thumbs up, when I saw the rest of the world get involved late 2020 when the Logan Paul stuff happened. It was like a pat on the back, like you've done the right thing. And I felt great about what I'd done that year in that sort of 12 months buying all those boxes. By going after the older stuff first, I thought in the future, when this stuff goes up, I can sell little bits of it and buy loads of the newer stuff, loads of the best new stuff. So that was the plan, and I've sort of done that. I've been able to sell a pack or two from like Black and White or Diamond and Pearl, and then buy 5-6 boxes of a new set. And that's what I want to continue to try and do going forward. But yeah, that was like probably my favorite time. Yeah. Ever since then, I've never stopped buying boxes.
You know what's funny about Thunder Knuckle, Max? So I buy a lot into Rob's breaks, Red Blue's breaks. And one of the first times we met, I complained to him. I've never hit anything. Never hit anything ever. I've been buying into his breaks for like the last year and a half, maybe more than a year and a half, right? And I complained to him like, dude, I'm here to support you, but I never ever get anything ever. I buy like 2 packs, sometimes I bought 4 packs. The very next break, I bought 2 packs of Thunder Knuckle, and I pulled the box hit, which is the Latias EX.
It's such a nice card.
Yeah. I also pulled the Weedle and I graded it, and at the time I graded it was a pop 2. It's a common card.
Is that first edition?
Yeah, it's first edition. I'll go real quick. I think I think the easy thing would say would be when Dream League and Dark and Double Blaze and all those sets were like $45. But I think my most fond memory is probably when VMAX Climax came out, because the set was just so good. And CHRs, I ripped 45 boxes in a weekend, because we got the boxes for pretty cheap at like 40, maybe it was 45, $50 each at the time. I had 2 seal cases and I ripped everything. And it was the most fun experience I've had, probably ripping in Japanese, because the boxes just come with a lot of good stuff. And it was at a time too where I think that's before Brilliant came out, right? I had a lot of the cards that were going to be in Astral and Brilliant and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the cards were new. You got multiple hits in a box because it's a high class set. The only sad thing I remember is that's when around print lines started to come into play. And so you have like this really mint card and you'll shine it in the light and it has like this, horizontal print line across the top of it, or a vertical print line or whatever. But yeah, that was probably my most fun time. My golden age was being able to open up that set, because I felt like it was one of the better high class sets to rip.
It was EV Heroes for me, just because I think I ripped. Well, I didn't rip that many, but like 8 boxes for me is a lot. You've made me feel better about my high class ripping. I think I did like 14. I think I did 14 VMAX Climax. It didn't appeal to me as much because I was comparing them to the VMAX Alt-Art chases you get and the glitter that they have. Like, obviously the artworks are amazing on VMAX Climax, but they just don't have that shine. So then I just associated it with the standard VMAX cards. But yeah, EV Heroes is goated.
Isn't it the time too that EV Healers, when they started to introduce like no hit boxes, right?
No, so I think what happened is in Blue Sky Stream, when it came out, there were some reports that some people weren't hitting SRs in their boxes, and other people were hitting like 2 to 3 in some cases. But from what I'm aware, it's still always been 1 SR guaranteed since the start of Sun and Moon, and then sometimes possibly 2.
So I can confirm, as a victim of that was not the case.
For
I've EV Heroes, that's when I started to not get any hits in my boxes. Like 1 out of every like 6, 7 boxes maybe.
Where mind me asking where you got those from?
The same source I got them from before, and trustworthy person, and it's not like that was I had no reason to believe that was the issue.
Because I did get 1 in every single box, and every box I opened since then in Sword and Shield, I've gotten something. The only time I didn't was Starbirth, which was the Japanese version of Brilliant Stars. Yeah.
Sword and Shield, I've had it 2 times where I didn't get an SR, and I was never sure if they'd been resealed or not.
Which
it was
one?
Time Gazer and Sword Base. I didn't get an SR in 4, and I just assumed they were resealed, but who knows? I mean, maybe they're not guaranteed. They're just highly likely. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was pretty sure they removed that.
Interesting. I mean, every box I've ripped has had 1. Especially Scarlet Violet. I mean, I've opened like 100 Scarlet Violet boxes. They did remove the text saying 1 SR guaranteed per box, but that was because they only put that text on for 2 sets, 3 sets max, which was... I've got it, actually. You guys keep talking. I'll bring the box over.
SM3H. And they had it... might have it nearby, actually. Yeah.
You would have SM3H just laying there.
Somewhere in here. SM3H, SM4S had that as well.
This one?
Yeah, that text at
the
the
red
top.
Oh my god.
It's the red text at the top. But yeah. Japanese Burning Shadows. I have an interesting question that I always talk to Max about. Are you still there, Max? Oh, he's probably pulling out.
Yeah, sorry, I was moving Pokemon around.
So we we have seen one instance from my memory of collecting where Japanese cards were more expensive as a whole than English cards, which sort of started around EV Heroes time up until 151, and then it switched. Obviously, there's still some exceptions because some of the EV Heroes VMAX alt arts are still worth more than the English counterparts now. But do we see the relationship flipping back over again at all? So will Japanese boxes, will Japanese cards ever overtake English cards again? And if so, how do you see it happening if there is a reason for it?
I think they could, but I don't think permanent. I feel like it would be like in 2023, there was a big craze for Japanese Sun and Moon. I think it would take something like that, where it'd be a lot of English collectors have a focus on Japanese for a bit and they see money in Japanese. I think it has a potential to rise above English again, but I don't know if it would hold there forever. That's my on that.
I have a very dark thought on this related to this guy earlier, Sean, who asked about the Wall Street Journal article.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people with a lot of money, so ultra high net worth individuals, people with a lot of unreported money, so crypto, for example, I think it's those people who are coming in that are propping up a lot of the higher end sales in English, along with the smart investors, the longtime collectors who are moving money over into the rare stuff. I think just like how a lot of that Japanese audience propped up the early, waifu trainer demand, I think Japanese is very susceptible in the future to being controlled by those people. I'm not going to say it's manipulation. I'm just going to say it's going to be easily influenced by people who have a lot of money who decide, hey, these things are actually harder to find, more rare, lower pop, and I can just go out and buy a handful of them. I think when that crowd decides to move over from investing into English stuff and putting their money into Japanese, I think that's where we're going to see. I honestly think it's due time. Like it's going to happen relatively soon, because I don't think there's enough. There's going to be a point where there's saturation in the valuable stuff in English, and they're going to move on to the next. And I don't believe that Japanese is never going to make a return. I think it just did not recover well since that boom post that big trainer push, like was it a year and a half ago, 2 years ago?
2023 summer.
But we're like this close with some of the Sun and Moon boxes, some of the PSA 10s for Sword and Shield alt arts. Like all it takes, and again, this is a really dark thought, all it takes is someone with 10, 25K to decide, you know what, I'm gonna go buy out everything on eBay. And that will have this unfortunate effect on people who only know eBay as like the market, and people will react accordingly. And then in Japan, I got to imagine too that it'll affect what the sellers are doing there. They'll see, hey, people are buying this stuff on eBay. Why would I sell it locally when someone's willing to pay, 4K, 5K for Umbreon, VMAX from EV Heroes, right? So these things are very sensitive. It's just a matter of time before someone decides, you know what, this is the thing I want to control, want to have control over.
You explained it a lot better than me. I think you hit it on the head, really. There's not as much supply of this Japanese stuff compared to English. So if these people move over, it wouldn't take much to pump everything up. And then I don't know. I guess we just have to be there for when they're done and buy it all back cheap.
Or it might not ever. I mean, I had this concern with English where, the Wall Street Journal article is really interesting in that there are people who don't understand Pokemon, but they understand storing value and investing, and they will look at alternative ways to invest into other asset classes, and they'll do that because it's a lot safer. At the very least, as long as you buy something and it doesn't lose value over time, that's what you could ask for. If you can buy something and you know it's going to go up and increase over time, that's obviously like the better investment. But a lot of this money is moving out of other, like a lot of crypto money is moving into our hobby, and people don't realize it because it's not affecting the day-to-day person as much, but it is driving up a lot of the prices for gold stars and low pop mid era and vintage stuff and ponchos and those cards. So I don't know. I think I hate to say it's obvious, but I feel like Japanese has been this way for a long time. It's only going to take a handful of people and tens of thousands of dollars, which honestly is not a lot of money to influence the market, and makes me kind of sad, honestly, because we're this close from it not being accessible, and it's been this way for a while.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to influence people, or how little it takes to influence people's perception on what something should be worth. Because it really is just a few eBay sales on the same item at a certain price point that can literally trigger this whole feedback cycle of a frenzy. It gets covered on YouTube, but even without that, it's literally just one or two sales. Just, oh, someone was willing to pay this for that, and I've been eyeing that up for a long time, and I thought that I had the longest time. I'd better buy it now. It really doesn't take much in general for those things to change that much. So I agree with that. I mean, I didn't read the Wall Street Journal article specifically, but exposure, I guess, is all I can say. Yeah, Dark Ibex. Okay, I didn't know that. Matchless Fighter recently shot up by like 50% in Japan. In English, this would make it on everyone's thumbnails. So for people who don't know, Matchless Fighter is 1/3 of Chilling Reign, and it has the 3 Galarian Bird alt arts. It has the Blaziken VMAX. It has the Galarian Slowking, and for a moment in time, it was also relevant that it had the Clara full art. But that set has always been a little bit underrated, I think, because it doesn't feel like it's that available compared to the other sets. But I do think a lot of it comes down to whether people actually know what's inside when they're buying these things. I saw that Fusion Arts booster boxes recently. Well, actually, Max made that sale. Max made a sale of Fusion Arts for about 170 to 180 bucks, which was higher than Lost Abyss. And I just had to ask whether the person who bought that knows that the Espeon VMAX and the Gengar VMAX aren't in it.
And the Celebi. It's just the move.
Oh, yeah.
Celebi's in Japan.
That's not a good set then.
Yeah, and it was £180, so I think that's like 220 bucks, which is crazy. That's definitely a record sale. Yeah, almost felt bad.
Matchless Fighters is a good set, and it's still less than $200 a box. So it's essentially what 80% of the good hits in Chilling Reign.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a
easily?
so
Yeah.
I mean, I years ago, you guys know Nin game?
Yeah, we have history with them.
Okay, yeah. So as do I. I after they canceled my EV Heroes, I swore them off, and then 6 months later, they restocked Silver Lance and Jet Black, and I bought them all out at like $40 a box. I got like 2 cases from them. But I remember I could have bought more Matchless Fighters, but I went with the cheaper Silver Lance and Jet Black. Silver Lance is not a good set. It has and the best card is the Ice Rider Calyrex.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just goes to show too, like there's a lot of arbitrage you can probably do locally than what's being done online. Like I don't think there's probably been more than 5 boxes of Matchless Fighters that's sold in the last month, if I had to guess.
We bought 5. in a group listing.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh yeah, no, I was just coming back to Ninin because that's literally what happened to Max as well. On EV Heroes, where he bought 10. What was it, Max, for like? I
Oh,
don't know.
that was-
I don't know why they discounted it to below the retail price.
Yeah.
How much was it?
I can't. I think it was under 5,000 yen, and everyone was going for them. Everyone I was speaking to at the time, everyone knew about Nin Nin. They were all ordering from there, and we were all so excited. And then we all got the email. They were like, "You can still buy them, but we're going to sell them for a bit more now." I think it was something like that. Yeah, I wasn't a fan. And then you had Blue Sky Stream straight after for quite a bit more than retail as well. And I was like, I'm protesting. I'm not buying that. And then I missed out. So
We were live tracking that because they were selling out certain numbers and then upping the price in real time. And we were like, I think it was like $50 at the highest, and we were like, that's too much. I'm not paying for that.
yeah, whoops. This is the thing. It was a good lesson. It was a big lesson. You can pay over retail when it's good. I learned there. Yeah.
So what else have you guys been buying out of Sword and Shield?
A lot of English, to be honest. Sleeve packs. And then as in terms of Japanese Sword and Shield, just anything cheap at the moment, because I do think that it's any time, it could be next year or the year after. I do think that you're going to see a surge of people wanting to buy this stuff. It's so cheap compared to English, the Japanese boxes. I said earlier that £50. I know it's a bad set, but that £50 for that box, old as hell, man. How much is Rebel Clash in English a box? You know, I think that's part.
Like 400.
Yeah. And for that, I could get 8 of these or 1 Rebel Clash. You know, they're just too cheap. Japanese Sword and Shield to me is just too cheap, and that goes for a lot of Sun and Moon as well, especially the tag team sets. I've said this every stream, but like the English tag team sets have had some of the best cards removed, and they cost so much more. The boxes, it doesn't, for me, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there's less out there of the English. There's probably more out there of the English than the Japanese. I don't know, because think about how much they print. There's probably like 80-20 English to Japanese, something like that. Yeah, it just blows my mind. I still, that's something. If Japanese starts to move, I see the tag team boxes probably running first or running quite high.
What about so Tag All Stars? Do you guys think? I think we talked about this before, right? Do you think Tag All Stars is the most undervalued right now, or do you think it's the other tag team, the sets with the tag teams in them?
I go off personal preference. So I was never a huge Tag Team All Stars fan because I'm more of a Pokemon collector than a trainer collector, and I feel like a huge part of what props up the value in Tag Team All Stars is the Erica's. Is it Invitation or Hospitality? That Erica holding the umbrella and the Sightseer, those two I think are the top chases. And then after that, you can pull the Umbreon Darkrai tag team and the Espeon Deoxys tag team, which I really like. But when I look at the other regular sets, I think there are some that I still prefer more than what I can pull in Tag Team All Stars, especially because when you open the box of Tag Team All Stars, you could just pull a Wishy Washy GX as your box hit.
I've done that.
And that set doesn't have the 3 small hits that you usually get in other sets. So in VMAX Climax, you get 3 CHRs. In GX Ultra Shiny, you get 3 baby shinies. But for Tag Team All Stars, I think you get Tag Team regular GXs, but then like it's just your box hit, right? So I was never that into it other than the box art. I'm a big Miracle Twin fan, I think. Anything other than Tag Bolt, which is the best set, the goated set, it has absolutely the best mix of alt arts. And unlike the other tag team sets, with this base set, they made sure that every single GX was a tag team GX, as well as the main set list is like Gen 1 focused. It has a lot of cool holos like the Gyarados, the Dragonite. That one is the best one. But after that, I think I just go off what I like the most. I think it's Miracle Twin. Because of the Mewtwo, I really like the Sableye, Tyranitar, and the Slowpoke Psyduck. I think that's a really good mix, to be honest.
I think box art for Miracle Twin is outstanding, and Sky Legend. They're two of the best modern box arts for me. It looks so nice. Having
What
Arita
about
do
Champion Road? Champion Road's got to be like, come on, one of the best.
I love Champion Road. I like what's in the set more for me personally. I love the reprints of Neo and Gen 3. I know it's not the strongest set.
Are we talking about the same set, Champion Road?
Champion Road, yeah.
The white
Like
one
the set with Electrode and Scissor.
Yeah. Because you know what? Those GX cards, a lot of them are in reference to the EX versions. So like the Salamence GX is the Salamence EX from EX Deoxys. The Mr. Mime is the Mr. Mime from Fire Red Leaf Green. So for me, like I collected Gen 3 when I was little, so these are really nostalgic for me. I love them. Yeah. The box art's good, but then loads of the Sun and Moon box arts are really nice like that. They're really simple. And you've got just the Pokemon on the front. For me, it is a nice box art. It is good.
My favorite card in that set is, I'm looking this up, Apricorn Maker.
Is that the old dude?
I'm just kidding. I actually have never looked at this card. Yeah, it's the one with the Sunkern on it.
What is that? That's not a way.
No, it's an old man Fu. Here, I posted the chat.
Granddad Fu. Lovely.
Your answer, Bonnie, is like of a true collector, by the way.
Yeah, that set for me, I don't care about the value of the hits in there. It's just purely a collector point of view. That one, I love that one.
No one talks about the Tag Vault ATB, so I think this is talking about the premium trainer boxes. Very, very, very niche product, where you get 20 packs of the set, and they've still been doing it recently. But it is true that people don't talk about it, but I think 90% of people don't even know it exists. Probably the issue.
And it's so niche within a niche that you might as well just buy the booster box, which at least should guarantee you a hit. Those 20 packs could get you nothing, or maybe, I mean, probably not 2 hits, but it's possible. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't bank on something like that.
You got the you have the 2 booster boxes, the Pokemon Center. I don't know what they're called. You know, the Pokemon Center booster boxes. I think you had. Oh, the one of those is super rare. The 7's Sky Splitting Charisma. That one is impossible to find, and it looks really cool. That is a really, really rare box. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I've seen that up for sale once. I don't think I've seen it ever again.
I've seen it on Buyee before, but for way more than the 2 box prices. One more question from King Sock, which I think will be the last one for this one's live stream, if that's okay with both of you. Will Sunbreon catch up to Moonbreon? I think Rob has asked probably what I was going to ask, which is English or Japanese. In the Japanese, no, never. And that's purely based on the dynamics of where you pull it from compared to where you pull the Moonbreon from. So for people who don't know, the Terrestrial Festival is the Japanese version of Prismatic Evolutions. You get 1 Pokemon SAR pull guaranteed in every box, and there's about 26. But because of that, I think it's a lot easier to pull the Sunbreon than the Moonbreon. And the cost of the box to pull it from at the moment is a lot cheaper. So at the moment, the Sunbreon is like £300 or £330 in a 10. And the Moonbreon is like 2.5, 2.8 in Japanese. So I don't see it catching up. And I also think the top cards of an era have a special status sometimes. And the Moonbreon is the top card of Sword and Shield. And the Sunbreon is not for Scarlet and Violet. I would say probably the Bubble Mew is at the moment alongside the Magikarp, but for me it's the Bubble Mew. So my answer is no. Legendary Mewtwo saying Umbreon looks infinitely better. I disagree, but
Sorry, I much prefer the colors of Moonbreon, personally.
So I think there is a general thing to understand. Market price does not mean anything. If you approach the hobby thinking market price doesn't mean anything, you'll think of these questions a little bit differently. Sunbreon will infinitely have much more sales volume than Moonbreon ever will. Period. I mean, it's already like it was already happening within like the first month, right? And so the market price really is indicative of like how much supply there is and how much demand is being that supply. And Japanese Moonbreon like is not selling hundreds of copies a month. Definitely not in raw. Like you probably can't even find it raw, but not in graded. The Sunbreon is like I think I checked is like a pop 40,000. And so like, you know, I would actually much rather buy. Oh, actually, let me think about this. Would I rather buy 6 or 7 Sunbreons in Japanese or 1 Japanese Moonbreon in the PSA 10? Well, as a collector, I'd buy the Moonbreon. But as a business owner, you'd buy the Sunbreon. And as an investor, I would actually it's a coin toss because now that Terrassel's going up, the boxes, like who knows what's going to happen, you know? So like, I don't know. There's just a ways of thinking about these things where it's not black or white, this or that. It's more so like, one, what are your goals? 2, like, what are you really trying to understand? Like, what's a better purchase given the same dollar amount, or you know, those sorts of things. So I don't know, man.
That's a really interesting and important mentality to have potentially when you're comparing Japanese boxes to English, right? In terms of how far can your money go for, can't think of the example, but even at retail, let's just compare the previous normal price of an English box for, I don't know, 120, 140 bucks, or you could get 3 Japanese boxes of that same set. But obviously now the split is a lot higher. So if we look at Twilight Masquerade, which is the example that Max usually uses, that's like 300 bucks at the moment. And the good part of Twilight Masquerade in Japanese is Crimson Haze, which you can still get for 50 or 60 bucks. So when you get to that point and you compare, would you rather have an English box that, you know, everyone is looking at, or if you could get 6 boxes of the good side of it in Japanese, maybe you might come to a different answer.
Just depends.
Just had a message here from Team Rocket Joey, but welcome to the live stream. We are just closing up, so I just want to say thanks to Max and Ern both for joining. I really appreciate the time. Maybe we can do this again on either of your channels, but for now, thank you everyone for joining, and see you guys next time.
Thank you guys. I had fun.
Cool. See you. Bye.
Hey, just us.
Dude, when are you guys gonna you know, pass me into your buying?
Into what, sorry?
I was just kidding. I was making a joke on your buying. Yeah, he left his stream on. Let's just keep going.
Fine. Hey guys, we're taking over.
How long do you think he'll notice until this is still going? Because neither of us control this, right?
Someone needs to tell him.
Okay, I'm just kidding. All right, guys. Peace.
Yeah, thanks guys. Take care.